Welcome back to the Old Photo Vault channel. The Choir Room Smile, Midwestern Girls School, Ohio, autumn 1978. The photo was taken in the school common room after choir practice, when the lights were still warm and the floor smelled faintly of cleaner. Margaret had told Ellen to open her mouth wider for the picture to make it sillier, and they leaned together, laughing, white blouses wrinkled from the day. When the print came back, Ellen noticed Margaret's eyes first, rolled too far upward, as if following something on the ceiling that wasn't there. The inside of her mouth looked deeper than it should, darker, as though the room went on inside her. A teacher said Margaret always did that when she was tired. Still, Ellen began dreaming of Ruth Calder, a student who died in 1946 after choking during rehearsal, her mouth fixed open on the final note. In the photo, Ellen's own smile seems to be answering someone else's scream. Perfectly timed, already learned. The third presence, boarding house on Ashcroft Lane, Vermont. Winter, 1932. The photograph was taken on a borrowed camera the night Lydia Moore couldn't sleep. She lay on her side, hair spread across the pillow, listening to the furnace click and the house settle the way old houses always do. Her sister Clara was meant to be behind her, breathing evenly, and the boarder, Mrs. Henshaw, asleep in the far room. When the print was developed weeks later, the room looked smaller than Lydia remembered, the shadows thicker. Two faces hovered behind her shoulder, not quite solid, their eyes catching the light like damp glass. Clara said it was a trick of age, of dust and damage. But Lydia knew the name. Eleanor Pike, who froze there in 1908 after being locked out during a storm, found days later beneath the same window. In the photo, Lydia's eyes are open, calm, as if she'd already made room. The one who stood still. Logging Road outside Mill Creek, Oregon, summer 1974. The photograph was meant to prove a joke. Helen Walsh stood on the dirt road behind her uncle's cabin, holding the small carved bear she'd bought at a roadside stand, the afternoon bright and ordinary. She remembered the air smelling of sap and dust, and someone laughing just before the shutter clicked. When the picture came back, there was a shape beside her, taller than any man she knew, its outline blurred as if the forest had failed to let go. They said it was a costume, a double exposure, anything simple. But Helen noticed the arm resting near her shoulder never quite touched her, and the eyes seemed older than the trees behind them. Her uncle went quiet when he saw it. He told her about Thomas Reed, a logger who vanished in 1911 after refusing to leave the woods he'd worked all his life. In the photo, Helen's face is calm, as though she already understood why he chose to stay. The guest who stayed for coffee. Maple Street Kitchen, Indiana, October 1991. The picture was taken after Sunday dinner, when the dishes were still warm and the house smelled of roast chicken and percolated coffee. Edith and Lorraine were laughing too hard to stand straight, hands still dusted with flour, glasses slipping on their noses. The camera caught them mid-motion, welcoming what everyone assumed was a neighbor's costume, thin and gray and grinning far too wide for comfort. It leaned toward them as if it already knew where the mugs were kept. When the photo was developed, Edith noticed the hands first, longer than they should be, resting on Lorraine's sleeve without wrinkling the fabric. Lorraine remembered then the summer of 1954, when her mother swore something had come into the kitchen at night. Curious about human habits, gentle but unwilling to leave. They never found proof. In the photograph, all three figures are smiling, and the coffee pot on the stove is still full, waiting, as if company is expected again. The aisle that never closed. Corner Market, Des Moines, Iowa. Spring 1956. The photograph was taken for the store's grand reopening, when the shelves were full and the lights hummed with new confidence. Margaret Ellis stood smiling at the candy display, apron pressed, shoes freshly white, Her hand paused as if she'd just finished straightening a row of chocolate bars. The floor was waxed to a mirror shine, and everything looked orderly, prosperous, safe. It was only after the film was developed that someone noticed the small face between the boxes, pale and intent, hovering at a child's height where no child should have been. They said it was a reflection, a trick of glass and packaging. Margaret remembered otherwise. In 1942, during a blackout drill, a boy named Samuel Price wandered the aisles while his mother searched outside, and the doors were locked by mistake. In the photograph, the candy remains untouched. The boy's eyes are open, patient, as if he is still deciding what to choose. The one left in the field. Sugarcane Flats outside Baton Rouge, Louisiana. August 1963. The photograph was taken at the end of the church outing, when the heat had softened everyone's tempers and the women were ready to go home. They lined up in front of the cane, handbags neat, dresses chosen carefully for color. Someone joked that the plants looked taller every year. The shutter clicked just as a breeze passed through, bending the stalks and lifting loose hair. When the slide was developed, Mrs. Landry noticed the extra shape first. A woman standing slightly behind them, thinner, paler, her dress washed of color as if left too long in the sun. No one remembered her joining the trip. The face looked familiar anyway. They spoke later of Evelyn Broussard, who worked those fields as a girl and collapsed during harvest in 1929, left resting where she fell until evening. In the photo, the others cast shadows. She does not, and the cane leans gently toward her, as if still making room. The door held open. Hawthorne Terrace House, Providence, Rhode Island. November 1919. The photograph was taken to show the new wallpaper, the way the floral pattern caught the afternoon light and made the hallway seem kinder than it was. Thomas Avery stood in the doorway to help, one hand on the latch, hat still on his head, as if he meant to step out again. The room behind him looks pale, unfinished, and the mirror on the wall reflects only brightness, no depth at all. It is an ordinary domestic image, careful and polite. When the plate was developed, his wife noticed how Thomas's face had darkened, his features smoothed as if rubbed thin by time. He had died 2 weeks earlier of influenza, quietly, in that same hall. She swore she had closed the door herself. In the photograph, it remains open, held just wide enough, as though someone inside was still expecting him to come back in. The reflection that wouldn't eat. Family Kitchen, Dayton, Ohio. December 1964. The photograph was taken during the holiday dinner, when everyone was too busy laughing to notice the camera. Harold leaned forward with a spoonful of rice, teasing Ruth as she opened her mouth, while the others crowded the table with bowls and elbows. The refrigerator hummed behind them, its white door catching the light, clean and bright as a blank page. It was an ordinary moment, the kind meant to be kept. Weeks later, when the slide was shown, someone noticed a shape in the refrigerator door, not a reflection of anyone in the room, but a thinner figure, standing just behind Ruth's chair, its face pale and watchful, mouth closed tight. Ruth remembered then her sister Mary, who died young in that house, refusing food in her final days, sitting quietly in the kitchen while the rest ate around her. In the photo, everyone is mid-bite. The figure in the door remains untouched, still waiting, as if dinner has never quite ended. The candle bearer at the threshold. Parsonage House, Västerås, Sweden. December 1908. The photograph was taken on St. Lucy's morning, when the house still smelled of coffee and wax, and the floors were cold underfoot. Anna Lindholm stood in the doorway as she had practiced, crown of candles steady on her hair, tray balanced carefully with cups and bread. She had been told not to smile, only to look calm and useful. As the light moved from room to room, the camera caught her just before she stepped forward. When the plate was developed, her mother noticed the figures behind her first. Soft shapes gathered in the hall, faces unfinished, as if they had paused mid-step. One looked like Anna's older sister Elin, who had died of fever the winter before, and had loved the procession most of all. Anna said nothing when asked. In the photograph, she holds the tray without shaking, standing perfectly still, as though waiting for those behind her to finish following. The collector's last arrangement. Private Salon, Paris, October 1897. The photograph was taken after the servants had finished tidying for the night, when the room still smelled of dust, oil, and extinguished lamps. Monsieur Delacroix's collection filled every surface. Busts turned slightly toward one another. Framed portraits hung in careful rows, papers stacked where he had last set them down. Nothing appeared disturbed. It was meant to record order, possession, proof of a life well gathered. Only later did the figure become visible at the long table, pale and seated, shoulders bent as if still sorting objects by touch. The face was indistinct, but the posture was familiar. Delacroix had died there 3 days earlier, collapsing while rearranging the room for the final time, insisting nothing be moved until morning. In the photograph, the chairs remain pulled close, the statues attentive. The figure does not look up. It seems he is still deciding where everything belongs, and unwilling to leave until the room agrees. The locket that kept its face. Old Churchyard Wall, Kent, England. March 1911. The photograph was taken to document the weathering of the headstones, the way time softened names into texture. Someone leaned close to the stone wall and centered the oval locket still fixed there. Its glass clouded, its hinge rusted shut. Inside, a young woman's portrait remained, hands lifted as if adjusting her hair, expression calm and unfinished. It seemed ordinary, a memorial left behind and forgotten. Only after the print dried did the unease settle. The face inside the locket appeared clearer than it should, less faded than the surrounding stone. Her eyes darkened slightly, attentive. The parish records listed her as Clara Whitcomb, buried in 1879. The locket sealed with her hair and photograph at her mother's insistence. When the wall was later cleared, the locket would not come loose. In the photograph, her hands are closer to her temples, as if she's been holding herself together, waiting for someone to finally open it. The one who didn't clock out. Construction site near the Trocadero, Paris, April 1952. The photograph was taken to show progress. The clean geometry of steel and glass rising against the pale morning sky. Ladders leaned where they always did, and 3 men paused mid-task, one climbing, one watching, one waiting for instructions. Outside the windows, traffic moved as usual, and the Eiffel Tower stood faint and patient in the distance. It was an ordinary workday, caught without ceremony. When the print was examined later, the foreman noticed a 4th figure inside the frame, pale and slightly misaligned, standing where no ladder touched the floor. The men swore no one else had been on site that morning. They remembered André Lemaire then, a laborer who fell through an open shaft the previous winter, his time card still unpunched in the office drawer. In the photograph, the others brace themselves on steel. The faint figure does not hold on. He stands as if waiting for the whistle, certain the day is not yet finished. The medal she never touched. Portrait Studio, Dresden, Germany. May 1916. The photograph was taken before the train left, when uniforms were still new and the future could be arranged by standing very still. Elise Bauer held her husband's arm the way the photographer instructed, fingers resting lightly, careful not to disturb the medal pinned to his chest. Her dress was dark and plain, the veil borrowed, the flowers chosen because they would not wilt quickly under the lamps. Everything about the scene suggested patience. When the print arrived weeks later, Elise noticed her hand first. It does not quite meet his sleeve. There is a narrow, pale space between them. as if the contact had been erased. Her mother said it was the exposure, the long stillness required. But Elise remembered the knock that came 3 days after the sitting. The metal returned separately in a small box. In the photograph, her husband stands solid and finished. Elise already looks like she is learning how to let go. The ride. She didn't finish. Suburban Street, Clearwater, Florida, July 1953. The photograph was taken in the late afternoon, when the lawn had just been watered and the heat still clung to the skin. June Harris balanced on her bicycle in the yard, smiling easily, one foot on the grass, the other on the pedal, as if she had only paused between errands. The house behind her looked new and proud, its windows open to let the air through. It was meant to show how quickly she'd learned to ride, how fearless she looked. When the print was developed, her sister noticed the blur first. A second figure rising behind June's back, faint and unfinished, hands close to the bicycle frame but never touching it. June had died 2 weeks later, struck at the corner by a passing car. The bicycle left bent and silent in the road. In the photograph, June is still smiling. The figure behind her seems to lean forward, as if urging her on, careful not to arrive too soon. The one who didn't order anything. Glass Arcade, Melbourne, August 1998. The photograph was taken late, when the shops had closed and the girls were lingering with a shared pizza, laughing too loudly in the echoing hall. Cardboard boxes were balanced like trophies, grease shining on their fingers. Someone lifted a lid for the camera, and the flash caught their faces mid-bite, careless and young. Behind them, the glass walls reflected the night into itself. It was only later, when the picture was printed, that the fourth shape became clear. A pale figure stands between the reflections, upright and still, hands folded as if waiting to be served. None of the girls remembered anyone else nearby. One of them felt uneasy anyway, thinking of the mannequin that had been removed from the closed boutique that morning, cracked at the neck, thrown out without ceremony. In the photograph, the girls are eating. The figure is not. It watches the open box with quiet attention, as if it has already learned that hunger does not always end. The man in the television. Apartment dining room, Krakow, Poland, February 1962. The photograph was taken just after supper, when the table was still cluttered with bowls and crumbs and everyone felt loose with relief. Stefan raised his hand in a mock salute, smiling at nothing in particular, while Mariah laughed beside him, brushing sugar from her sleeve. The television hummed quietly behind them, its screen dark, reflecting the room in a soft, uncertain way. It was meant to be an ordinary keepsake, proof of a good evening. When the slide was shown later, Maria noticed the face first. A man stood inside the television glass, clearer than any reflection should be, his expression calm and familiar. Stefan went pale. He said it looked like his older brother Jan, who had vanished in 1944 after being taken from that same building, last seen watching a neighbor's radio flicker to life. In the photograph, Stefan's hand is raised mid-gesture. The man in the screen appears to be answering, as if he has finally found a way to be seen. The one who stayed by the wheel. Wheat farm outside Salina, Kansas, June 1941. The photograph was taken in the open field at noon, when the dust lay flat and the tractor had just gone quiet. Ruth and Calvin leaned into each other beside the farmall, kissing as if the day had paused to allow it. Her skirt brushed the tire, his boots sank slightly into the soft earth. It was meant to be a cheerful proof of youth, of work finished early. When the print came back, Ruth noticed the small figure first, standing inside the pale curve of the rear wheel. A woman, thin as heat shimmer, hands folded, eyes fixed on the couple. Calvin said it was glare, a trick of sun on metal. Ruth remembered then Lillian Moore, crushed there 5 summers earlier when the brake slipped, found at dusk with dust on her hair. In the photograph, Ruth and Calvin cling together. The woman by the wheel does not move. She seems to be watching for the moment the engine starts again. The leaves that remembered him. Garden of the officer's house, Odessa. September 1909. The photograph was taken in the late morning, when the light was clean and the uniform still stiff with pride. Nikolai Petrov stood in front of the vine-covered wall, cap straight, hands open as if he had just finished explaining something ordinary. The leaves behind him were thick from summer, glossy and well-kept, climbing patiently toward the windows. It was meant to be a farewell picture, nothing more. When the print was examined later, his wife noticed the shape among the leaves to the right. An impression of a face pressed gently forward, eyes formed by shadow, mouth softened by the curl of the vine. The gardener said ivy often grew that way. Still, Nikolai had drowned the following spring during a routine crossing. His body recovered tangled in reeds. In the photograph, Nikolai stands solid and composed. The face in the leaves does not look trapped. It seems to be watching him leave, already learning how to stay. The space she left on the couch. Living room, St. Louis, Missouri. October 1957. The photograph was taken on a quiet afternoon, when the house smelled of starch and sunlight slanted through the blinds. Helen Carter stretched across the sofa, laughing at the photographer, one shoe kicked off, her skirt draped carelessly over her knee. The cushions were still new, their buttons tight, and the room looked practiced and calm, as if nothing ever happened there except rest. When the print was developed, her sister noticed the faint shape behind Helen's shoulder first, a second head rising from the back of the couch, pale and slightly out of alignment, eyes open, but not quite present. Helen said it must be double exposure. Still, she went quiet. Their mother, Margaret, had died on that same couch the winter before, sitting upright until the very end, refusing to lie down. In the photograph, Helen's body leans comfortably into the cushion. The shape behind her does not. It seems to be holding itself up, careful not to disturb what has already moved on. The chair that stayed warm. Veranda of the Seabreeze Hotel, Key West, April 1906. The photograph was taken in the late afternoon, when the ocean air moved slowly through the veranda and the wicker chairs creaked with use. Mrs. Eleanor Fitch sat straight-backed, hands folded, her white dress buttoned carefully for the heat. She was waiting for the breeze to turn, she said, for the hour when the light softened and the guests returned from the shore. The hotel behind her gleamed with fresh varnish and patience. When the image was developed, the second presence appeared beside her, faint, seated in the neighboring chair, its outline pressed into the reflection of polished wood. The staff said it was glare, salt on the lens. Eleanor knew better. Her husband had died there the previous summer, falling asleep in that same chair, never waking before sunset. In the photograph, Eleanor's posture is composed, almost hopeful. The empty chair beside her does not look empty at all. It seems to be listening, as if the evening routine has not yet finished. And so these photographs remain, quiet, ordinary, and unfinished. Maybe what we call ghosts are not intrusions at all, but traces left behind by moments that refuse to end. A chair still warm, a shadow that stayed too long, a face that learned how to wait. Before you scroll away, look once more. Ask yourself what you noticed first and what you almost missed. If these images unsettled you, if they made you pause or remember something you couldn't explain, let me know in the comments. What do you see in these photographs? Subscribe if you want to keep exploring the stories hidden inside forgotten images, because some photos don't fade, they watch.